I think it's recording, so better start saying something. Well, the title of this movie, if I was to make a title, I'm not sure what it will be eventually, but it can start with what I'm believing. Well, my original culture is not Western. Uh, my family comes from somewhere, I think, in the area of Kurdistan. And my soul connections is to the wisdom of the East. And they are majority of humanity lives outside of the spiritual area of the West. They are not belonging to the West, and neither do I. I took to travel to the West as part of the mission that was always there during centuries, where the East was inserting new understanding into the West. The West was younger, and the West, even if it's Europe, we're talking about immigration of people that conquered forcefully Europe a few thousand years ago. And then moving to America, the immigration to America because many reasons, but on a simple person level, the reason why people went to America was that they were tired of the corruption in Europe. But what happened in the United States, not only the victims of corruption from Europe started a new country with great hopes for a new society, a new free society where they will be free of the inherited control of the Vatican, of the cabal in Europe. And the cabal in Europe started to be stronger and stronger since perhaps the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire already conquered places where in the East where people were much more revolted with them than them. They were looking down at everybody. The Roman Empire, Caesars, they were looking down at every other people and they were playing with them, conquering them, enslaving them, managing their countries to the best of their ability, conquering them, killing many people. And this continues with the colonialism. America, soon enough, became colonialists like their European traditions. They didn't break out of it, and they became enslaved by it. And they didn't find the freedom. They didn't create the freedom that they were promised to themselves. Now, the leaders of the American freedom movement, if you look who have composed the American Constitution, the leader, the higher spiritual beings, the higher intelligent beings, those who could put all this mess together and come out with it to some sensible solution. Eventually, now we know that the quarantine of Earth, the imprisonment, the leaders of the freedom movement in the West then never considered the galactic wars. and they never consider a longer history than 5,000, 6,000 years, which is what puts them together with a time effect of the Kabbalah. The Ascended Masters created a program for modern society, but they couldn't handle it. Why they couldn't handle it is because the West was conquering, and they divorced from the rest of humanity. The Americans, the West, that was less mature, that was childish, and no wonder that the point where I see it from, and very, I'm devastated by the continuous of the war, continuous of the engineered deceit, the infusions of this disease and illnesses, the wars, the religions with their divisions. This doesn't exist so much in the East. I mean, even people have affiliation or participating in local culture beliefs, they don't take it so much as a division from others. It's just embellishment. I can tell you, for example, that in Spain, in the Golden Age, where they still practiced freedom, personal freedom, individual freedom. So Christians and Muslims and Israelites and everybody were allowed to marry each other. There was no division by the church or the religious institutions to divide them and not allow them to marry each other. You can check in Spain, for example, Alhambra in Granada, in Spain, where you have the Alhambra, which is one of the most ancient mosques in the world. In the center of the mosque, there is a synagogue. The most, it's built like a mandala, the structure of the building, and it's huge. And in the center of this building, there is a synagogue. In the center of the mosque, there is a synagogue. How could it be possible? Because there was no ruling of the religious authority like today. And people took religions like embellishment, like if I lived a few thousand years back, I could still affiliate myself and be Christian and Muslim and anything, or Buddhist, anything that I wanted to be, because it's an embellishment to being, to an entity that is allowed to attach or affiliate with anything depending on how you feel about it at the moment. And so the problem that I am seeing in front of me, in front of this society, is between the immature and the mature. The immature are leading the world with violence, with ignorance and violence. And the immature, having all the weapons, the culture of the West, and all the history of colonialism and enslaving the rest of the world, they having this culture, they're teaching with this culture others. They're teaching them how to organize their countries. They drew the lines in the sand in the Middle East and everywhere to say this is a country and this is a country. And now they gave each country weapons to fight and to create a resistance, which gives them, the Western colonialists, an excuse to go into these countries and have, they're trying to dictate the culture in these countries. the economic market in these countries, the like they know so much, you know. And when you look at the leaders of this West that is promised freedom to humanity, when you look at the leaders, and I'm talking about all the leaders of the West, including the ascended masters, the spiritual people who talk from behind the veil, they all locked in this immature state of mind, you know. So looking at this continuous offensive offensive of convincing the world to follow the freedom that the West has established, forcing this as not forcing the others into their limited mindset, is bringing me to the point where I don't believe the spiritual heads of the West. I don't believe them. They are immature and they are limited. And so it is a situation, a dreadful situation, where I cannot convey how much I am painful because of this, and how much pain the natives of Asia or the natives of America or the natives of Africa have suffered and still suffering of this madness from the West. And we come to the West, learn the English, and we are talking to the Western people just to give a perspective from the East, at least the Middle East. And the perspective eventually is suggesting for us to wait for the elders. You know, I say that all the leading of this culture, as it comes from the West, is going nowhere because they know so little. So there is anticipation on my part to the fall and the decline of the West as a leader in any sense, including technology, including the extraterrestrial contacts. Everybody is also putting aside the Western sense of science and the Western manner of inquiry into reality is very, very limited. So there is a great waiting for the mature ones from the East. So it's my belief that the West will fall. The West will fall because the most more mature beings on the earth, which are Easterns, they will, and they are the majority also, they will take the lead from the West. Now, they don't have any particular agenda, I don't think so. They will not have a centralized political or religion directives. They will just allow new aspects, new knowledge to come in and embrace them seriously. And what is happening now, for example, with the extraterrestrial disclosure brought by the Western contactees, this is still very limiting. In a sense, there's very much technical description. They find bodies and parts of the machines, and they reverse engineer the machines. This is not human at all. This is a robot mind. So there is a great anticipation, wait for the elders, for the more mature ones to come forward and take the lead uh, over humanity, and not in a sense that is fearful, that is intimidating the West. Just the West just losing their position as leader because they could never be leaders with such limited abilities. Yeah, so the West cannot lead with the world with their limited abilities, not the scientific world, not the spiritual world, not the philosophic world. The only thing they can lead is by being more loud. But you don't make yourself wise with being loud. Yeah. So we're waiting for the elders, for the mature leaders, for mature leadership from the East to come forward. And this is what I'm hoping for. And I consider I live in Israel, and Israelis leadership is also very immature. Every finding of the galactic about the galactic coming from the West, for example, now they say that the bigger star, one of the biggest stars in the Palladium, the Alcyon star, Alcyon's sun, is in fact the continuation of Jerusalem. The Jews claim that they deserve to have the empire over the Middle East and conquer everybody and control and contain everybody. They're just agents to the West, and collecting dots to make themselves so important. It's crazy. It's just crazy. I hope you understood what I was talking about. And I just bless us with new leadership on the earth. New leadership that is conscious of the reality of truth that is happening, is a leadership that is learning. It's not a leadership that is imposing their ignorance over the rest. Yeah. Well, thank you for watching. I'm Yosan Pedro. Nice to meet you again.